world stunned. Filipino Elvis sound-alike ignites AGT stage, Simon in total shock. The lights of Los Angeles felt heavier than the humid air of Manila. Yet 17-year-old Marco de la Cruz stood backstage at America's Got Talent with a calmness that surprised even him. His mother's hand squeezed his one last time before he walked toward the stage. "Anak, remember why you sing," she whispered. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of everything their family had survived. Marco nodded, swallowing the tightness in his throat. "For Lola, for Mom, for everyone who believed in me when I barely could." The moment he stepped onto the stage, the massive theater erupted in applause. Marco was small, shy, and dressed simply, nothing like the flamboyant stars who usually commanded this stage. But there was something in his eyes, a quiet determination, a softness that drew people in. Simon Cowell tilted his head. "Hello. What's your name?" "Marco de la Cruz. I'm from the Philippines." "And what are you doing for us today?" Simon asked. Marco inhaled deeply. "I'll be singing an Elvis song." The audience chuckled softly, not mockingly, but curiously. Another Elvis act? Could this boy handle that kind of expectation? But Marco didn't flinch. He held the mic the way his grandfather once taught him, thumb lightly on the ridge, as though holding a memory. The music began. And then, the moment that shook the world, Marco's voice slipped into the air like warm honey, smooth, soulful, and impossibly close to Elvis Presley. Not just a copy, but alive with emotion. The audience gasped. Simon's eyes shot open, his jaw dropping in something dangerously close to awe. It wasn't just the sound. It was the feeling. Every note Marco delivered carried a story of nights spent singing to his bedridden grandmother to ease her pain, of street performances to help pay for medicine, of the countless times music was the only thing that held him together. By the first chorus, people were standing. By the second, they were shouting. But halfway through the song, something unexpected happened. Marco glanced toward the far left balcony and froze. In the shadows, a man slowly stood, a man whose face Marco had not seen in years. His father. The father who left when Marco was 8. The father he had spent years resenting, then missing, then finally learning to forgive. The note Marco was supposed to hold broke slightly. Just slightly, but Simon noticed. So did the crowd. Marco closed his eyes. The music swirled around him, urging him forward. Not now. Not fear. Not anger. Not anymore. He steadied his breath. His next note soared, stronger than before, gentler, too, as if something inside him had unlocked. The entire theater felt the shift. The judges leaned forward, and with a trembling heart, Marco poured forgiveness into his voice. He sang not just for himself, but for the father who hadn't known how to stay, for the mother who worked double shifts to keep them afloat, for the grandmother who had always said, "Kindness, anak," even when it hurts. When the final note hit, long, full, shining with something pure, the room detonated into applause. People leapt from their seats. Sofia Vergara covered her mouth. Howie Mandel shook his head in disbelief. Heidi Klum clapped above her head like a child witnessing magic. But Simon simply stood up. Not slowly, not politely. He jumped to his feet, eyes wide, hands pressed to his temples as if trying to process what he'd just witnessed. This, he finally managed, is one of the most emotional performances we've ever had on this show. Marco's hands trembled. He blinked back tears. And then, another shock. The man in the balcony stepped forward, shouted over the crowd's roaring applause, "Marco! Anako, I'm proud of you." The theater fell silent in an instant. Even the judges turned. Marco froze, not in fear, but in something deeper, something healing. Then, for the first time in almost a decade, he smiled at his father. A small smile, unsure, but real. The crowd erupted again. Not just for talent, but for humanity, for forgiveness, for a moment that transcended entertainment. Simon hit the golden buzzer with a force that sounded like thunder. Gold streamed from the ceiling like rain, wrapping Marco in a storm of light. His mother sobbed backstage. His father covered his face, overwhelmed. Marco knelt on the stage, hands in his hair, tears pouring, not from shock, but from the weight lifting, piece by piece, from his heart. When the music faded, Simon leaned in and said softly, "You didn't just sing. You healed something in this room. And I think you healed something in yourself too." And Marco realized he had. Not because of fame, not because of applause, but because he chose compassion over bitterness, love over memory, forgiveness over fear. As the golden confetti settled on his shoulders, Marco looked up, not at the judges, not at the cameras, but at the people who shaped him. His mother, his father, his grandmother in heaven. And he understood the truth that would guide him forever. Kindness doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. That night, a Filipino teen didn't just stun the world. He reminded it what humanity sounds like,